Okay, another update. I've got my Speedmaster cast low profile intake here. It does have a, well, you can't see it. It has a 102 millimeter throttle opening. I do have this 87 millimeter throttle body that I'm thinking of converting to a cable. I haven't decided if I'm just going to buy one or mess with that. So motors in the car, covered engine mounts last time. Now I want to talk about the transmission and clutch setup. So this car was originally an automatic, and I guess I can try to show you this. And now it's going to be a manual transmission. So it's got a factory flywheel for a LS1 Camaro and an eBay clutch. It's like a 6-puck, what do they call a stage 5. It's a Clutch Max brand. I've had good luck with those in other cars I've built. So that's the clutch. The pressure plate is all ready bolted down, so it's ready to get the transmission. And the transmission for this car is going to be this fine piece here. This is a AR5 5-speed transmission. It is from a 2015-ish Polaris Slingshot, actually. Now they put these in the Pontiac Solstice. They put them in the Hummer H3, the Chevy Colorado trucks. They all were a little bit different. This side, like the flange on the front and everything, I think is all the same. The tail housing, like the Colorado version, has the shifter here. The Solstice has it like, I think it's actually remote mount, and it's way back here. The Slingshot actually has the best shifter location in my opinion, and this is, I think, going to be pretty close to what a ZF6, so what the original 6-speed for one of these cars would be, shifter location. So when I put it in the car, we'll be able to test that theory. So what this is the Polaris Slingshot would have come with a 2.4 GM Ecotec engine, 4-cylinder engine. So when I bought it, it had the bell housing for that on there. A couple companies make adapter plate, which lets you bolt the AR5 transmission to a 4L60E bell housing, so from an automatic transmission. So when I bought the 5.3, it actually came with this with the correct 4L60E bell housing and transmission. So I sold the transmission, kept the bell housing because I was planning to do this. So it goes AR5 transmission. That's actually a G-force adapter, which is similar to like a Fabot adapter, but this was about $50 cheaper, so that's why I went with that. That's like a 05 Silverado bell housing from an automatic, and then the clutch slave and throwout bearing are from a LS1 Camaro again, so like 97 to 02. It's got a adapter, an AN adapter for the clutch fitting, and then the line just goes out and around and back, and that'll hook up to the stock, A-stock style C4 Corvette clutch master cylinder. To bleed it, it has this fitting on the bottom of it. You can get a kit to bring this out with a hose and have the bleeder outside of the bell housing. What it is, I just hole sawed a hole so I can access that. I'm sure it'll be messy when I bleed it, but how often do you bleed your clutch? So I saved the 40-50 bucks that would have cost. So this is all assembled and torqued together. So that's the front end of what's going on here. On the back end, the Slingshot and the Solstice transmission both have this CV joint output type. So it's like a 6-bolt, just a 6-bolt flange. So you can't actually bolt a normal U-joint style drive shaft to that. So I bought this adapter from, I think it was Auto Sports Engineering was the company that makes this. And this was, I don't know, like $100 from on a Black Friday sale. And then this is a Spicer. Well, it's not a Spicer, but you can get a Spicer version. This is a Chinese version of a Spicer 1310 U-joint flange. So this bolts to that, the flange bolts to that, and then I'm gonna have to come up with a way show you that. Just generally what I'm trying to do here. We're gonna have to come up with a way to bolt this this member here onto the AR5 transmission. Because the C4 Corvette doesn't use a transmission mount. This beam here, which they call the C-beam, gets bolted from the transmission to the front of the rear diff, and that's what holds the front of the rear diff up and the back of the transmission up. So I'm gonna have to fabricate something to bolt this all together. I don't think that's gonna be terribly hard. But I'll show you that when I get to it as well. So I'm gonna try to throw this thing in the car since I've got it up, I think, high enough. And I'm feeling strong, I guess. I think this transmission's over 100 pounds, so it should be a fun bench press to get it in there. So hopefully I'll make a follow-up to this video and not have a busted face from dropping this on me. So more to come. All right, well, after much wrestling and cursing and dropping things on my head, the transmission is in the car. So the next step is to figure out the top side. Which is to make a hole in the console. See, I got everything all taken apart here. To make a hole in the console so that I can get the shifter coming through here. So if you have a weak stomach, you may want to look away. Well, I made a hole. It's a bit bigger than I probably should have made it, but I'm figuring I'm gonna have to put a plate over all that anyhow, so this might help me get my C-beam bolts in a little easier. So let me show you the C-beam next. So if you've heard me talk about the C-beam, this end bolts, these two bolts here bolt through the differential in the back, and then in the front here, these two bolts bolt to the back of the transmission, and that's what holds up the front of the diff and the back of the trans instead of like a regular like motor mount and a diff mount. So I started mocking this up. I'm gonna have to cut this shorter before I can even build the bracket that goes between the transmission and this. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm gonna lop this off. I think I have to cut it back to here, but I'm gonna start with this and see how it looks. It's always easier to cut more off and harder to put more on. This thing is like, I don't know, 5/16 aluminum, so I don't wanna have to get that welded back together. Well, that took some doing to build the transmission to C-beam adapter, but I'll show you what I came up with here. Zoom out. So the C-beam attaches to the diff in the back, and then what I've got here is a 2-piece mount. So this part gets assembled, this bracket here gets assembled to the C-beam before you put it in the car. And then after you get the C-beam in, this, so I can show you. The back of the transmission sits down in here. It has 4 bolts to hold this on, and then it has 2 ears that pick up the other 2 bolt holes on the transmission. So this part gets bolted to the transmission, and then it's got 3 1/2-inch grade 8 bolts to hold this bracket to the C-beam, and that just pulls that nice and tight like so. So I think my next step is I'm going to paint this and put it in. And then I'll show you a short video of what it looks like in the car. Here's what the C-beam adapter looks like under the car. You can't see it all that well. Maybe this will help. Oh, that helps quite a bit. So there you can see how it's all put together. See my beautiful welds? I don't care that much about. One thing that I don't like is, I'll show you this. When you push it, maybe you can see this, maybe you can't. But it's not that stiff up and down, which is the kind of dimension or the axis that the C-beam is stiff in. So I think I'm going to put another piece of steel that's bolted like here, and it's going to be welded here to give it some stiffness in the up and down direction so the shifter's not bouncing all the time. I'll show you that sometime. Okay, one more update here before I move on past the transmission here, just to talk about what I've got going on. I do have a drive shaft in there now. That is a unmodified front drive shaft for a 93 S10, and that uses the same size U-joints as the C4 Corvette did, which is a 1310. I did beef up the mount a little bit more. You're not going to be able to see much there, but I'm working on the exhaust now, so you can't really see the additional bracket that I put on there, but you'll have to take my word for it that I put another bracket on there. And basically this thing's ready to transmit some power.